Now let's take a look at string methods. I'm going to start a Python shell. And a string method is a function belonging to string objects. So if I define a string x, we know that Python will tell us that this is a string. Python sees this as a string. If I inspect this a little bit, these are a bunch of string methods right here belonging to this object in Python x. So let's look at some of the useful ones. If I do x.center 20, it's going to pad this on either side with white space so that the whole thing is 20 characters long. This can be really handy when you're trying to format output in the terminal. Another nice method is the count method. And this is going to tell me how many times L occurs in this string. So I've got 1, 2, 3 L's right there. So it's going to count that. If I did x.count LL, that substring only appears once. If I did x.count Z, that substring appears nowhere. Now, similar to the center method, we can left and right justify this thing. So if I did x.left justify with 20 characters, okay, I get a string that's 20 characters long and hello world is left justified. If I did right justification, it's going to push it over to the side with the white space over here. And the whole thing, again, is 20 characters long. Also handy for formatting output to the terminal. So the next one that I want to look at is upper and lower. So these methods are going to make our string all uppercase or all lowercase. So x.upper makes hello world. Now you'll notice that x is still this. If I wanted to use that somewhere, I would have to store it in another variable because this is a method. It's a function that's returning this string right here. So if I said y equals x.upper, x is still the original string, but y is the uppercase version. Similarly, we can do x.lower, and it's going to make everything lowercase. This is really handy when you want to take user input and match it to various strings. You can just make their input all lowercase or all uppercase, and then you don't have to worry about whether or not the user is capitalizing yes and how it might be different from a yes like that. The next method we should talk about is the index method. Remember that an index looks like so. The 0th index of this string is H. The 4th is O right here. If I ask Python to give me the index of O, it'll tell me where that occurs. Now, what about the index of L? This simply gives me the index of the first occurrence of the string L. If I asked it for the index of LD, it's going to tell me that that begins at the 9th index of my string. Similar to an index is the find method. So there's my string hello world. If I want to find first occurrence of W, it's going to tell me the index like it did before. Okay, now if I look for something that's not there, it's going to tell me that it's not there by returning a -1. Now remember, x -1 is actually a valid index, which is going to give me the very last character. However, when I'm programming something and using this method, I should just be aware that if the substring does not exist, then it's going to return a -1. Now the only way that this differs from the index method is if I did the index of z, I'm going to get an error. It did not find that substring in there. Now finally, the last string method I'm going to show you is the replace string method. So there's my string hello world. If I replace every occurrence of L with X, I get a string that looks like this. Notice that X itself did not change, so once again, if I want to use that for something in the future, I'm going to set it equal to some variable, or rather I'm going to give it a name, y, and x dot replace like this. So those are a handful of string methods that you will find useful.